Hello again, my name is Joel. For those of you who don't know me, I work at Original Skateboards, and I'm here today along with the new Freeride Beast boards released by Original Skateboards to talk to you about drop slots and drop throughs and mounting a traditional longboard truck in that manner. If you purchase, or if you decide to purchase an original Freeride board, you'll have the option to order that unassembled, and you can save yourself a few dollars and put it together at home. Or if you decide to purchase just the deck, this video will help you learn how to properly mount a set of trucks using a drop slot. So as far as tools or things you're going to need to assemble a drop through setup, obviously you're going to need a deck that has a drop slot cut in it, a set of traditional longboard trucks like these bears that will work as a drop through setup. You're also going to need hardware, hardware as in the nuts and bolts to mount the trucks, and then your washers or shock pad, whatever you have or you choose to use. And then also have a skate tool here. This skate tool happens to have an Allen key that has a Phillips and an Allen bit in it. It's a great little tool there, as well as the skate tool to take the trucks apart. And then a wrench that fits the nuts that you're going to be using. At the shop, we use a cordless drill to speed the process up a bit. If you don't have a cordless drill, you can do it by hand. It's not a big deal. It just takes a little bit longer. So those are the basic things that you're going to need to set up your drop through. Each of the Freeride boards is a 9-ply hard maple construction. And just like any other wooden board, these boards will eventually develop stress cracks over years of use. A longboard like this is subjected to a lot of pressures for general riding, tricks, things that you're going to do on the board. And the use of a washer like this or a shock pad is a great way to help distribute those forces across more of the board rather than having them focus right where the mounting bolts are. So it's a great idea to use these washers or any kind of shock pad underneath the trucks to help distribute that force. Okay, so the first step here in mounting your drop through setup is to take the trucks apart. So we're going to set your deck aside for now and grab a hold of one of your trucks and your skate tool. And pretty simple, straightforward. You just loosen up the nut here on the kingpin. So take that off. It's pretty tight. It's a nylon lock nut, so you're going to have to use a tool to get it off. There's only a few parts. You have the nut there, a cup washer that holds the bushings on. This is your first barrel bushing. Then you have your hanger, and you can pop the hanger off just by kind of twisting it out away from the base plate. And then you're going to have the pivot cup here on the base plate and the pivot on the hanger, and then your second bushing, this is another barrel. So those are the basic parts of a standard truck like this. And now you can take this base plate and actually mount it to the deck without the hanger on. All right, so now that we have our truck apart, we can set the bushings, washer, your nut, and your hanger to the side, because what we need to do now is take the base plate and attach it to our deck. So we'll pull the deck around here, and keep in mind the orientation of your base plate when you go to put it on the board. It's easy to think if you think about when you're making an adjustment, when you kick the board up and you make an adjustment with your skate tool while you're out skating, you do that towards the outside of the deck. So your kingpin here is actually going to face towards the nose or the tail, whichever end you have it on. So it's just a kind of a quick way to remember which way to mount this, because if you mount it the wrong way, you're going to feel silly and take a lot of time to have to take them off again. So basically what you're going to do is take your base plate and put it through the slot. And you can turn it to the side now, and we can start by putting some bolts down through the top of the base plate and through the deck. Now, if your bolts don't easily slide through the deck, if they don't, if they're tight, you don't want to just mash this bolt through the deck. If you take a hammer or push it really hard and push it through the deck, you stand a really good chance of actually chipping out some of the material on the underside here. So if you push it through, the threads can catch on the wood and chip out little pieces of the wood here. So you'd much rather take the time to actually screw this through the deck. You can use an Allen key or your drill if it is tight, and just if you spin it, it will thread through the deck. And as you can see, as I spin this, it actually sinks in there. And if I look on the other side, now it's sticking out. So you want to do that with the 4 bolts coming down through the top side. Okay, so now that we have the 4 bolts through the base plate and also through our deck, and we have it turned bottom up, now we are going to put on the washers that we talked about before. Or if you're using a shock pad, you can use your shock pad now. But this is this is where they come in. They go against the surface of the board, and again, remember they help reduce the amount of pressure in a given area. If you were to just put these little nuts on your bolts and tighten them down, stands a good chance that you're going to pull them right into the surface of the deck, whether it's fiberglass or whether it's wood. It's pretty easy to pull these right through and into the surface of the deck. You really don't want that to happen because it reduces the structural integrity of the board. So again, the washers or shock pad is a really good idea. But now we're going to start by threading the nuts onto our bolts here, and we'll do all 4, thread all 4 here at once. I like to set the board up on its edge like this, and then on a table or something high so I can reach over it. I'm going to grab my wrench in one hand and my Allen key in the other, and I'm going to hold the deck up between my my chest and my arm, and then basically just start by tightening these down. So it's kind of, it's not the fastest thing in the world. It's a little bit slow going if you're doing it by hand, but it doesn't take too long. As you're tightening these up, once you get to the last one, which I'm doing right now, you want to go back and check over the other ones that you tightened up just to make sure that they're all snug. And then as a matter of good practice, before you go out and ride, it's a good idea just to check to make sure that your base plates are still snug to your deck. Over time, these will loosen up a little bit, causing the truck to wobble in its bracket, and that's just not a great thing. Obviously, it's reduced performance of your board, and you really just want to make sure that your setup is nice and tight when you go out to ride. And once I've done that, we can reassemble our truck. So we're going to lay the board down again, now that we're all nice and tight here. And we're going to reassemble the truck reverse as we took it apart. So start with your first barrel or cone, whatever bushing you're going to use. And then the hanger goes back on after that. I'm going to push that down into the pivot cup there. Takes a little bit of pressure, but it should pop right back on. And once you've got that back on there, it's your next bushing. And that goes on, and then your cup washer on top of that, and finally your kingpin nut. Now, you want to be careful when you thread this. You want to make sure that you don't cross the threads. If you do cross the threads when you put it back on there, you're gonna mess up the end of your kingpin and or your kingpin nut and have to get replacement parts, which is just a hassle. So just make sure that it sometimes does take a little bit of pressure to have the space, especially if you use some bushings that are from a different company or whatever. You may have to give it a little bit of a press to make sure that everything fits in there. And then you just grab your skate tool again and tighten it down to whatever your desired setting is. And that's about it. So we've got one truck now mounted as a drop through our drop slot on our board. It's a pretty straightforward process, and I think all you guys will have a pretty good time with it. It's a good thing to know how to do, especially if you ever want to change trucks or change your setup from a top mount to a drop through or vice versa. It's a good little bit of knowledge. So hope you guys enjoyed it, and good luck. Skate safe. Wear your helmet. Stuff like that. Words of wisdom.